This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, and welcome to Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network powered by Raven International. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. This is a show where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love and rediscover the truth of who you really are. I don't think I've ever had to say this before any of the shows I've done, but this show is strictly for the adults. Why? Well, over the years I've hosted this program, I've talked all about aspects of self-improvement and self-awareness, from learning how to use our dreams to getting rid of those negative beliefs to keep us from achieving what we want out of life. I've also delved into ways that we can uplift our relationships with others, including on previous shows with my guests, who I'll be bringing out in a minute. But I've never devoted a show to the subject we'll be discussing today, sex. When I think about that, I'm actually a little surprised, because a satisfying sex life is a goal everyone ought to have, and certainly part of what makes up a dream life. I'm prompted to do so today by my guests, relationship experts Jami and Marla Keller, because of their new book, The Other S Word. Among their claims, sex is not just something fun, it can actually help keep you healthy and young. Jami and Marla have a 97% success rate in healing couples' relationships, so I'm really curious to hear more about their findings. Is there really something new to learn about sex? Well, let's find out. Welcome back to Dream Power Radio, Marla and Jami.
So thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you for having us. We're so excited.
Oh, I am so excited to be talking about sex. I mean, what a great subject it is that we've got on our hands. So tell me, why do you see sex as a kind of fountain of youth?
Well, that's about the science, really.
Yeah.
That actually lengthens telomeres when you have sex more than the average, for sure. The average right now for most couples is once a month. Mm-hmm. And so twice a week or so lengthens your telomeres. Telomeres are the thing that tells you how long you're going to live.
Yeah.
So that's just a science fact.
Well, I believe it's the fountain of youth just from an emotional perspective, because when we choose excitement over, say, anxiety, and a lot of people, they feel anxious about sex. So choosing the excitement around it will also keep you younger and healthier, because you're choosing to dive into the excitement as opposed to feeling anxious. And I know, because, for the first, we've been together for 34, almost 35 years now. And for the first 10 years of our relationship, I was not successful. I thought sex was like, this goes to my background of being in a very conservative religion and these kinds of things, right? And so for me, I thought, oh, it's fine. I don't know what the big deal is. And so I was there for Jami. We were connected. It wasn't like we weren't having it. I just was like, meh. But then when I finally figured it out, I was like, oh, I get it now. And also I actually began to feel younger and happier and more in tune with myself being in that situation for me.
I believe you were part of an experiment, the 1% experiment. So can you tell me about that and what happened?
Well, it's just really funny, because I ended up deciding one year that I was going to choose to make love, have sex with my husband, with Jami, only husband I've ever had, at least every other day, and just see what happened. I made that decision for myself. And then I just started doing it. I didn't tell Jami until after a year. I said, well, this is what I've been doing. And he was like, really? Wow, that's amazing. And thank you. And for me, I ended up, instead of it being like a chore or whatever, I was excited about it. I was looking forward to it. And I didn't have that. I knew, because I'd made the decision, I knew that was what was going to happen. And so I was like, okay, every other day, and I'm just going to do it. And you know what? If you're tired, if you're busy, if the kids, blah, 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 all the things of life, it's okay. Let it be what it is. Let it be what it is and engage in making that decision. So that was my decision. And then Jami really appreciated it.
Yeah, it was really beneficial for both of us. We really got connected over this. What we're really struggling with in our culture is a huge shift that, sexuality is decreased in couples significantly. Like I said, the average is once a month for couples right now that have been married for more than a year or less. And then the other thing is that marriage has gone down and living together has gone up, and the millennials are having less sex than anybody else. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One of the things is there is an addiction to all the stimulus that we have in our world. Our cell phones are taking away dopamine that belongs to our partner. And if the trends continue like they have in Japan's about 10 years ahead of us in use of the cell phone technology, and their birth rate has gone below sustainable.
It's so sad.
And most of the young people there are not even planning on getting married, are not looking to have any in-person kind of sexual activity. And that same trend is following about 10 years behind here in the US.
Yes. So the arousal addiction, it's not part of the DSM yet, but they're seeing that this is a real thing, because you can go from adrenaline sports to sex to pornography, which, could be, those are combined at times, to playing your video games, to whatever. And so it's all these things. And I don't have to really work on a relationship, because I can get my arousal over here.
That is amazing and quite sad, because to my mind, sex is fun.
Well, yeah.
You realize sex is fun?
Yeah,
Yes.
but we get
Yes.
but we get so much. The social media leads to comparing, and so many people have body issues, performance issues, and so that is new. With the techniques that we use, we see like 100% success rate.
Yeah.
Shift and actually having success in the bedroom. Impotence goes away, confidence increases. It's just a matter of doing the right work.
So how do you get somebody who is seemingly not that interested in sex to get interested and want to do it?
That is a really good question. And we have had many clients who one of the people in the partnership is in that place. And there's a whole lot of factors underneath that connection, right? Because they're feeling emotionally disconnected from their partner, which ties to the sexual connection with your partner. It's like this beautiful symbiotic experience that you can have. And, it reminds me of the Dr. Wilhelm Reich. We quote him in our book, and The Functions of an Orgasm is the book that he wrote. Less than 1% of people truly know all over body, mind-blowing, consciousness resetting orgasm. And that is why they use it as function, or, get it done, like wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, get it done, but not experience that mind-blowing consciousness resetting orgasm.
Because they're not emotionally present.
Mm-hmm.
They're not able to be present emotionally. Therefore, it's just basically a friction deal. Right. And so what we call that is glorified mutual masturbation.
Yeah.
Right. And that ends up really limiting the next time you have connection, because the expectation is now set and it's just a matter of getting it done quick.
So you're saying, in other words, that it's not just the mechanical sex.
Oh, no.
You have to have that emotional connection.
Oh, it is the only reason why.
Well, you can have mechanical sex.
Yeah, well, of course.
And enjoy it, right?
Yeah, that happens, and that's not a bad thing.
No.
To have happen, and that's another thing, right? People get really hung up on, it has to be this way. Well, it doesn't have to be any one way, but it does require, if you're going to have a satisfying sex life, you have to do the emotional work that goes with it, and that's what we're good at. And we didn't start with looking at sex, but we started with healing marriages, right? Mm-hmm. And so when we got into that, we started discovering that when the emotional work was done, people were saying, "Oh yeah, our sex life has really improved."
So when you're dealing with somebody who has a troubled relationship, like you do people who you work with, how much of that is either caused by sex or caused by the lack of sex? And conversely, how much of it is improved by an improvement in the sex?
That's a good question. We don't have statistics around that, but I would say that probably 50% at least of our clients, even our current clients, they're coming to us because of a sexual disconnection, which is really interesting because we don't hear about it on the front end. They don't ever say, and we have a free discovery session, and they don't ever say, oh, by the way, we're having sex issues.
We haven't had sex in a year,
because
more.
People feel ashamed. So we say the other S word is sex, and then there's also another S word is shame, and the other one is silence. And so it's that shame, and so we keep silent because we think that everybody else is having this incredible experience, and what's wrong with me? That was me. I thought, wow, what's wrong with me? Something is really wrong with me. Something's wrong with my body. Something's going on. But the truth was, it was really here between my ears, in my head, more than it was in my body, because once we came to that place, I was literally like, okay, I get it now. For me, I was sexually abused as a child. I shut it down. And realizing that, and Jami and I working through that together was so powerful, because that just opened up my mind to this completely different understanding of sex, a different comprehension of what it did not only inside of me, outside of me, but between us. And, the sex has always been good between us. And when we were those first 10 years, it was a lot. And so it's the whole really sad statistic of most couples, most marriages, they only have sex one time a month. And I'm really grateful we never got there. We didn't even get close to that. But what a really sad thing. That is, you're missing out on such a huge part of the relationship.
And you're trading it generally for things that aren't very helpful.
Yeah.
TV, phone addiction, whatever, and you're replacing, and what happens is pornography has grown so much, and it really is harmful to women, 99% of the time. I mean, we're not prudes. We don't speak against having some outside stimulation like that, but it needs to be kept in perspective.
Well, a couple needs to choose it,
right? And they need to choose it together, and they need to be, if they're going to do that, and really. Most of the couples that we have that have had that choose against it as they find the more emotional connection. And so really what we're talking about is getting the right perspective and giving your relationship the kind of time and energy that it deserves. And when we talk with people about this, it's really interesting, because it's really, when they look back, they say, oh, you know what? I was watching sports, or I was playing video games,
or for the women, busyness, right? It's the new badge of honor. I'm so busy all the time. Oh, I'm so busy. I don't have time for that. And we're like, okay, just start taking 15 minutes to cuddle on the couch and touch and be connected. Just start there. And then as we move through our sessions with couples, we say, okay, so then the next phase is, now you're going to be doing things like holding hands, giving hugs, making out. Okay, the next phase is, now we're actually going to dive into sex. So it's like, okay, incremental, because a lot of couples, they haven't talked about it. They're afraid to talk about it, and they don't want to talk about it. And they need that space and time to get reconnected just through touch, because they're not touching at all.
But that all begins with the emotional work. And being able to speak your feelings, Feeling Well 5.0, and beginning to speak a common language about what we're really feeling. And that eventually leads right into the bedroom, right? What are the words for this? And so what happens is we have these emotions. Emotions are the chemicals in our body. We're having a reaction. Something's happening. And feelings are the names that we put on those chemical reactions that are happening in our bodies. And when we can speak clearly, what we call speaking our truth in love, then we now are really connecting. And things like eye contact and micro expressions and touch and posture.
20-second hugs.
20-second hugs. These things all lead into a more connected communication. And what Marla said in the very beginning, shifting from anxiety to excitement. That's the key right there. If we can let go of the anxiety and learn to be excited, which is basically the very exact same emotion in the body, right? It's the same exact emotion.
Feels the same to your body.
Yeah, it's the same chemicals. It's just our perspective around it.
I am getting all excited about talking about this. We have to take a break now. We are talking all about sex with relationship experts, Jami and Marla Keller, and we'll be right back.
Symbols. If you don't know why you're dreaming about cars or any image, it can leave you confused or scared. But that dream could be a solution to a pressing problem, or an insight into a solution that's been bugging you for years. Go to my website and sign up for a complimentary discovery session, and I'll help you understand why a dream is a terrible thing to waste. Go to thedreamcoach.net for more information.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I am your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, and we are talking all about sex today with relationship experts, Jami and Marla Keller. Well, Jami and Marla, one thing that I kept thinking about when you're talking about all this is I actually talk about myself. I've gotten older and I went through a big change in menopause, and it physiologically certainly changed in terms of, things going on in my body when it comes to sex and things like libido. So how do you drive those physiological changes when you get older with this whole idea of you can have sex all the time and it's great?
Well, I've gone through menopause. I mean, I'm on the other side of it. So I completely understand that. And also the most incredible thing happened with me because I started that experiment before I went through menopause. And so my mental state of mind was in that space of keeping that connection, keeping the oxytocin flowing between us, which includes, like I mentioned earlier, the 20-second hugs. And so that 20-second hug, building oxytocin allows you to then, or actually gives you the gift of that desire. And even even with men being through menopause, I have a physical desire for Jami that has not really shifted a lot because I've grown through it. And that's because Jami and I keep on working on the oxytocin between us and then in our own individual experience. That's actually the key, because oxytocin will help no matter what phase of life you're in.
And it never stops building. They've done research now that they can prove that. We've been talking about this for almost 20 years. And now that we have the science behind it, you can build oxytocin receptors forever. And they continue to grow. The more you use them, the more they get used.
Guess what blocks it though? Adrenaline. Adrenaline blocks oxytocin.
And it takes up the receptors and it keeps them from growing more. And so that's, we'll go back to that anxiety again. Anxiety always has adrenaline. And when you have that adrenaline flooding your space, but back to your question. Because I think that's really a big one right now, right? I mean, it's like, okay, we have all this information. There's a fundamental flaw that we see almost every time somebody has that complaint. And that is that they've been hurt by this change. And there is what we call a lack of creativity, a lack of sensitivity by the men, and the lack of communication by the women that are going through this, because there's pain involved. It's a very painful thing, and we understand that. And we know that is real. But let me tell you a little story. So as a young occupational therapy student, taking advanced classes, we worked on the quadriplegic ward. Well, quadriplegics can have an orgasm. And the way they do it is they have to choose a spot where they can feel above their damage level, right? So usually shoulders and above. They choose a spot that becomes their new erogenous zone. They can feel it. It's dedicated space. But the orgasm is psychogenic. So remember this, when you want to blame your body for not having an orgasm, it's really in your mind. And so we take those skills about working around the mechanics, and we add some creativity, and we add some different skills. The problem is we think that sex is one thing, A plus B equals C. No, it's a lot bigger than that. And it doesn't have to be so contained and so dedicated to a frictional orgasm. It can be so much more satisfying for both partners, even when there is severe pain in certain situations.
Yeah.
But in other words, let's actually talk about orgasm, because that's what I wanted to get to next. Are you saying that good sex doesn't mean orgasm?
Yes, exactly. Doesn't have to be. No. And that's great sex can be orgasm-less for both partners, right?
Which is like counterintuitive for people when they hear it. But the truth is, it's about the connection. And we can have the connection and maybe something's going on. But if we're connected and we're together, and it's okay, and we can say, okay, for a long time for me, it was if Jami didn't orgasm, which was very rare, but if that happened, men get a little older, they still have some of the same issues, right? And if he didn't, I blamed myself at first. Like, oh no, went to my enoughness. So what I had to do is go and do some more work, do some more forgiveness work for myself, and let it flow out. And let those really painful feelings again flow out so that I didn't stay stuck. And then flow in. He loves me. He thinks I'm beautiful. He tells me that. I believe him. So why wouldn't I believe him about this? And so it's that head game, that head space. And so for me, for a while when he wasn't, then I would get all whatever, and then I wouldn't, and so it's this whole thing. But then we started to, if that happened, like I said, very rarely, but then he would say, hey, I want to do this for you. It's okay. And we can revisit this later today if we want,
or tomorrow or the next day.
Or tomorrow or whatever.
It's not, I think we get so close-minded. Yeah. I mean, which is really one of the biggest barriers that we see in these situations. So close-minded to talking about it, to finding out what turns people, our partners and ourselves on, experimenting a little. Hey, a failure in the bedroom can be the best thing that ever happened. And if we can get past this blame and shame, what did we learn?
Yeah.
Right? That didn't work out. We didn't like that. Okay. Well, what does that mean? And let's talk about it. Let's try something else, and let's grow from here. And the problem with that is the safety in communication. Most of us, even if we work with people that have been married 40 years, and their satisfaction goes up dramatically in the bedroom usually because now they can talk about these things.
And they're talking about not just sex; they're talking about their real feelings, right? They're cleaning up a lot of crap that it's just been built up. Like, hey, when that thing happens, I feel annoyed, frustrated, and confused. And it can be just like that. And then the other person responds with, wow, that wasn't my intention. I'm going to work on making sure that that changes or that shifts. So it's actually just having this conversation about what I'm feeling, but not being responsible for your partner's feelings, and not being afraid of their feelings, right? Because we all have feelings. Yeah. We all have them. And if we don't express them and move them out of our body, we get so stuck. And in that stuckness, our sex life is crap. Our emotional connection is crap, so it's like this whole, it's like the domino effect. And the sexual emotional loop is this perfect, beautiful circular thing that can grow and move and shift as long as they're both in place.
And we believe that orgasm should be ever improving, getting better.
It can be
all the time. We believe that because we have experienced that after 35 years of marriage. Mm-hmm. Our sex life is far better today than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah, the excitement of the first year or the first 3 years, and then you get into a settled kind of love. Well, yes, and It doesn't have to stay a settled kind of love. If you continue to have a good, better communication and move together and forward in all of these difficult conversations, your everything, your connection, your sex life, your everything, your communication with your children, your communication with people around you, it all improves when you are working towards that together.
My message to men out there, if you want more or better sex, dig into your emotions, your side of the street, figure out how you can be connected and be sharing with your partner in a way that turns them on. And I'm not talking about physical or sexual here. I'm talking about emotional.
Yeah, it all boils down to the same thing. Communication is key. Understanding our partner is key, and it just flows from there. Another thing that you mention in your book is the whole idea about gratitude and empathy. So talk a little bit about what that has to do with sex.
So I would just add to your saying there, communication, and what was the second thing you said, emotionality? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I would say empathy first, then communication, and then that together understanding. Those are the steps. Empathy. It's shocking to us. It's shocking to us when a couple comes to us and we say, well, how do you think your partner feels about that? And they got nothing. I mean, almost, or they're so far off, right? And so it's like, well, wait, have you ever tried putting yourself in their shoes? Right? Just for a minute, just try to feel what they're feeling. And they're like, whoa, how could I possibly know what well, put yourself in that position for a minute. Really try to understand it. We go by a rule. If I can describe your pain as well or better than you, there's nothing you won't do for me.
Empathy.
Mm-hmm. Empathy is the key to opening all of this stuff up. If you can truly be present with your partner's pain and be comfortable with it, especially when you've caused it. I can speak to that, right? So I've caused a lot of pain in our relationship. And it wasn't until I could say, yes, I did that. That's real. I see how that affects you. And I get that these are your feelings about that, X, Y, and Z, really specific, really present, right?
And so the empathy is that core. And then gratitude is something that you can practice daily. If you will write down 3 gratitudes for your partner every day in the morning, you could do it at night too, doesn't matter. It will change how you feel about your partner because you're not focusing on the things that annoy you, as simple as, did you remember to take the trash out? Or did you remember blah, blah, blah? And then the partner is like, blah, blah, blah. It's the whole, it's okay. We're just having a conversation. There's no judgment. There's no, criticism. It's simply, let's have a better conversation. Let's just choose to turn towards each other, as Dr. John Gottman, who's researched marriage for over 25 years. Let's turn towards each other. Whatever that is, if Jami asks me a question and I'm doing something else, instead of being like, oh, I'm busy, turn towards them and say, okay, right now I may not have time to answer this, but let's sit down and talk about it later. So it's that choosing to engage as opposed to, and be totally involved in that empathy and that gratitude for our partner. And we can do anything.
I tell you, I have 100 more questions to ask you, but we are out of time.
Oh my goodness, that's so fast.
I know. So I just have time for this. How can people find out more about you and your work?
Yes, jamiandmarla.love, JamiandMarla.love. And that's our website. Get in touch with us there. We do a free discovery session because we are so different. We have a 97% success rate keeping couples together. That's a complete flip of the national average of 80% failure that seek counseling. So we're super excited about what we've been doing.
Well, I tell you, I've been excited to have you on Dream Power Radio today.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, so good to be here, Diane.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We've been speaking with relationship experts, Marla and Jami Keller. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. If you have, please tell all your friends, follow me, and drop a positive review on your podcast site. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International.